Beautiful. Hey, guys and girls, I'm so pumped and excited. I'm going to put it out there. This guy here, officially of Greek origin, the number one agent. End of story. End of story. Got featured. Everyone was showing me this article in the Greek. Sam, were you aware of that Greek paper article?
No, I wasn't.
You don't know about it?
No, my father showed me with great delight, but other than that, I wasn't aware of it.
Alrighty, I'm letting you know this here. I've got a small group of people that are watching on Zoom, but this is being streamed on Facebook now, right now. And most of the people that you're going to be having watching this are people that are in Sydney, New South Wales, where we're experiencing. It's more of a semi-lockdown. I've got to say, Sam, it doesn't feel like you guys had a proper lockdown. To me, agents are still taking buyers to property. Agents are still going to listing presentations. They're still having vendor meetings, you know?
Ours was quite different to that. I mean, we were completely locked in our home. We couldn't take a private tour of a home. The best that we could muster up was getting the vendor to do a FaceTime tour with a buyer and trying to log onto that call or onto that Zoom function and narrate the vendor's tour of the home, which was very difficult. But being able to show a buyer through a house and get a deal done and keep things moving in that fashion, I think is a blessing considering the way that we had to deal with things last year, particularly.
So, Sam, by the way, everyone, the person that's on camera here, I want you to understand, he is the number one agent, REB Top 100 in Victoria. He's the number one agent for Jealous Craig as a company. This guy is legit. This guy is the real deal. Agent with his own business unit, but also business owner. And a very successful business unit. You have to be to actually be awarded the number one in the REB for all of Victoria. And Sam, you've been kind enough to actually, help us. Like, success leaves clues. You've walked the path of doing an online auction when you were pressed to do an auction and couldn't do it on site, right? On Saturday, right across Sydney, there are, I reckon it could be close to 1,000 auctions that were scheduled, right?
Wow.
That people, and I've got, I've got 13, 14. I intend to go ahead with those as long as the clients want to go ahead. Now, I know that there's multiple platforms, and listen, I have a bit of a relationship with Anywhere Auctions, and there's Auction Now, and there's Gavel and all this. But Zoom for you was something that you worked in your business. How many auctions do you reckon you've done with Zoom?
We're probably close to 50 myself personally. Right. And we did dabble with some of those other platforms. We did work our way through, and they all had different positives and some negatives that we had to kind of navigate our way through. For us, it just felt like the Zoom platform was the most, I suppose, the most comfortable platform for the person at the other end, because they are using this kind of platform in their own work engagement and life outside of buying a house. So when you consider how do we make it comfortable for the buyer to log in and feel like they're running a process or a system that they've somewhat comfortable with, it was a bit easier than some of the other platforms that we were working with. And so we just landed on Zoom in the end. Probably about 20 auctions in, we landed on sticking with the Zoom platform.
Okay, I want to talk about the tech stuff firstly, and I want to before we move into how to do a really good one in terms of energy and delivery. I want to talk about the basic foundation, the tech stuff. Like, give me an example. Where would you be? You were the auctioneer.
Yep.
Where would you be? Where did you do the auction from?
So it depended on the stage of lockdown that we were in, right? So I've done them at home, I've done them at the property, and I've also done them in the boardroom at the office.
Yeah.
The most common for us was that we would do them at home last year. So we would had to set ourselves up in a living room or in an office, make sure we were well lit. And one of the challenges in that in scenario is that you don't have your physical team around you. We were all logging in and tapping in, so we had to communicate. We had to have a method of communication within our team, which was usually WhatsApp, a WhatsApp group, to direct the flow of traffic. Who's taking the bids, who's communicating with the buyers, who's, how do I sound? Does it look okay? Does it, is there any technical issue? Am I lagging? All of those sorts of things, which we've had to correct many times before we got the flow right.
And Sam, can I ask you,
Yeah.
where were the bidders at their home?
The bidders were at their home. Yeah, they were all at their home, at their office, or wherever they might.
And where was your sales team? Where was your sales team?
My sales team was at their respective homes on the Zoom as well. So the audience on the Zoom platform was quite populated in the gallery view. We had my EA, my buyer managers, my associate agents, any other staff. We had them on the Zoom, as well as the buyers in their respective homes, and the vendors. And sometimes the vendors had, family or children or advisors or whatever it might have been that needed to be a part of the process as well. So the links would then get fired off to everyone. We were conscious of not overloading the page, because if you sent the Zoom link out to everyone, you could be inundated with 100 people on the Zoom just wanting to watch the auction, right? So we, we were just managing the number of people on there, based on priority: buyers, vendors, staff, and then so on.
So Sam, in Victoria, buyers don't have to register to bid, do they?
They don't have to register to bid, but one of the silver linings to the lockdown COVID experience for us was that we in order to conduct some inspections, and when we were limited with auction numbers at properties, we had to get people to register to bid to appropriately account for the numbers and the spacing. So we, as best practice, have continued on with that, so that we have a really clear understanding of who's going to participate and who's going to be involved. So although it's not law, we are definitely using it now as best practice and standard process of all auctions on street and Zoom. So we certainly are asking people to register. And then once they're registering, we're going through a coaching call process about, explaining the environment to them, making sure they're feeling comfortable, making sure they understand the rules are the same, making sure they understand how to bid, what to do if they can't hear us, and talking them through any technical issues that they might face, and giving them a backup option of contact and so forth.
Okay, and Sam, can I ask you, so essentially what you're saying, on gallery on Zoom, you had the auctioneer, the agents, associate agents, let's call it your team. You had the vendors, and you had people that had registered. You didn't open it up to all these other lookers.
What we did was we were smart in the way that we opened it up. If we knew we were having a really competitive auction and it was shaping up, we would invite prospective vendors, and sometimes even buyers that we were trying to get over the line on other things, so that they could get some comfort around the way that we were doing things, and social proof that we were leading the charge in our market in terms of being able to execute on this unique platform, and that we pivoted well, and that worked really, really well for us. So we weren't shy in inviting other people on, but we certainly did it in a priority fashion.
Okay, now, did the bidders themselves make bids on Zoom, or did they put them in the chat box?
99% of them were on Zoom. What we were doing in the chat box is we were updating the bidding record in the chat box. So one of our team was that was their role. You follow the bidding in the platform, in the chat box, and also be there as the help support for anybody who might have missed a bid, who might have had a technical issue, because some people's internet lags and all of that sort of crap can happen. So we had staff phone numbers in the chat box. We had the bidding record, and then we had kind of a tech support person. We had two different people in the team managing that in the chat box to keep things going. But largely the bids were always a nod, a wink, a smile, yell it out, just like an on-street auction.
Was everyone unmuted?
Yes. To start, we ask that everybody is with Zoom, you can obviously, as when you're controlling the Zoom platform, you can set it up so that everybody logs on muted. And then as we conclude our spiel, we then ask everybody to unmute themselves and have the cameras on. A lot of people were trying to just watch in the background without the camera on, so that they kind of could almost, not feel fully committed. But getting their camera on and getting their mute button on what was an essential part of getting them like engaged. You're in this. You're not in the background. Like you're a participant, and we want you on and active.
Got you. Okay, so Sam, ideal scenario is camera on and unmuted, so you're participating. You're there now. Let me ask you: did you often use vendor bids?
Yes. Yeah. We had to use vendor bids to get things underway sometimes, because there's nothing like if you think an auction is awkward out in a street waiting for an opening bid and there's silence from the crowd, try doing it with 10 people staring at you in a room on your own in your living room. It's very, very awkward, right? So you've got to get the pitter patter going, and sometimes you've just got to introduce that bid sooner rather than later. We spent a lot of time coaching people before we started the auctions, though, to get them comfortable about, if I'm going to start the auction here, I need you to participate here. I'm not going to drag it out. This is the value of you holding the highest bid. And then during the process, if bidders looked anxious, worried, concerned, we would have our staff connecting with them for a phone call, text message. Are you okay? Do you need to chat? This is the time to bid. All of that sort of work that we might normally do in the street, where you're kind of walking around and encouraging the bidding. And sometimes, quite often actually, we would pause the auction, put ourselves on mute, hide our camera down, and just hit the phones and ring everybody and just say, what are you doing? This is and if people sometimes they needed that encouragement, and other times they asked for a bit of a break. Can I just have 2 minutes to consult? And I actually found that was one of the best things to come out of the Zoom auctions was that sense of privacy, where people could close down the camera, mute themselves off, have a conversation that they probably couldn't have in front of a crowd of 50 people at an auction, and come back and just go whack and bid again. And so it worked really well on a lot of occasions.
Okay, big takeaway, everyone that's watching: don't be afraid to actually press the mute button, take your video off, put it on hold for 2 minutes, allow phone call between agents and key buyers. Well, I didn't ask you at the start, Sam, when you did the preamble on a property, did you talk about it, or did you go off and actually show things online on the property?
No, we just spoke about it. So I wanted to be engaging and energetic in the same fashion that we would be out in the street. I made it nice and clear that the only difference in this auction, as opposed to an on-street auction, is that we're doing this in the digital arena. And outside of that, here are the rules. Here's the spiel. Here's the why. And and let's get into it. High energy, high engagement. Keep your cameras on. Keep it zeroed in. I think my concern with some of the platforms that we looked at, and also rolling images and things like that, might be it's an easy distraction and it lacks that engagement connection with the auctioneer, which sometimes you just need to look at someone. And I would look at people and call their name and say, come with me, Tom, come on, I can see you, and the same way you would in a street. And I think that's really, really important.
When you like in a street, Sam, you don't normally say, come on, Chris, another 10, but on Zoom, because you know their name, do you say their name?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes it's funny because you don't know, like it's one person's, it's Wendy on the name, but it's Chris on the bidding, and you're calling him Wendy just to get him involved. So anyway, it was a bit of fun.
Okay. And Sam, can I ask you, did you read out the terms and conditions like you're reading something out of a book, right? You just read it word for word. Yeah.
Well, we've got the auction rules that we need to read before we start an auction, and then we summarize the contract, and then we go into the description of the house and the location. So in exactly the same way we did it out.
So with auctions, do you have in Victoria? Do you have an auction board where you put out and say these are our terms?
We have a set of auction rules that need to be on display for half an hour before the auction.
Yeah.
They get that gets shared around to everybody before at the appropriate time before the commencement of the auction.
Right. Okay, so there's another rule, guys and girls. I would send the terms of auctions and conditions out to the buyers prior, so they've actually got an email version. But the auctioneer should read out what they've got to read out.
Correct.
Sam, can I ask you, when the property was sold, did you have a decent success? Did a lot of them sell?
Yeah. Most of them sold. Some were challenging, and the biggest challenges were the ones, I suppose, early on where we were really facing the unknown of what was happening in the world and COVID, and the market was kind of on a downward spin. That was challenging. I think that would have been challenging whether it was on Zoom or out in the street. So, but the strike rate, particularly in the last 2 lockdowns for us, was very high.
Right.
Very strong clearance rate.
Now, signing the contracts.
Yep.
Want to ask you, signing the contracts, what did you do about signing them to the successful bidder? Like in Sydney, in New South Wales, we can go now because you are allowed to go to people's houses, and I presume that's what most agents will do. Property will be sold, they'll go to the buyer's house and sign a contract.
We have all of our contracts are preloaded into a system called Real-Time Agent, and we use Real-Time Agent and populate the vendor, the sale price, the purchaser's details, and really easily just click send and sign. Click send for signing, and then it appears as a link on their inbox. They can sign it on an iPad, on their iPhone, or they could on an Android. It takes literally 2 seconds. It's super quick, very efficient, and we just use that.
Okay, but if you're an agent right now that doesn't have Real-Time Agent or any of these sign-on glass platforms, you can just go, like I'd recommend, just go to the buyer's house, sign the contract, like you would normally.
I would do that. Yes, I would make sure that if I had the ability, if I couldn't sign on glass, as you say, and I certainly wouldn't leave it too long before I was at the buyer's house getting a contract.
When did you register buyers prior to auction?
We started the process about 72 hours prior.
Right, beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay. During this whole process, was the vendors were on gallery view? Were they muted? Did you didn't speak to the vendors obviously on Zoom, did you?
No, not on Zoom. We would pause and then get on the phone to talk to the vendors. And they would be one of the few that were muted and on cameras off during the auction process.
Okay, mate, this is extremely useful, Sam. It's just so good to know that when someone's doing it for the first time, it's better that they listen to someone that's done it 50 times, right? Obviously, right? So we've gone through a lot of and you would record the auction. Obviously, it would make sense to record it because that way you've got a record of the chat box of the bids.
Yes, yeah. It's also, for our perspective, because we were in it for such a long time, we would edit the videos and have them sent to our marketing team, and then cut up good marketing material for social media use and other things. And we were always trying to look at how do we show the market that we were facing the challenge really well, and that was really useful. So obviously it helps from compliance, it helps to have the record, but also it can help to show your prospective vendors that you're doing it well.
Now, you're a great auctioneer. I've seen you on social media. You know how to create energy and anticipation and just this environment of, hey, I should bid. May I ask you any tips when doing it online?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes into the coaching beforehand, and also the very personal engagement of saying, looking at the buyers and not being shy about saying, "Hey, Tom, I know this is difficult. I know this is an online environment. I know you might not be used to it, but it's not going to get easier to buy this tomorrow. Take advantage of. Give me $1,000 to keep you in it." It's a dialogue, and I like to engage in a dialogue, whether I know their name or not, in the street or on the Zoom. I think getting a little bit personal and digging down, like bringing up some of the things that they might be thinking. It's easy to sit here and do nothing, but just come with me for $1,000 to get, to throw your hat in the ring or whatever it might be, is it has always worked for me. And I think when you combine that with some coaching that's, pre auction, and also the ability to break and call them, that's everything that we can do. There's not much more we can do other than pull their hand out of their pocket physically and put it up.
Yeah. So Sam, I've noticed on your pre-meeting notes today, you've said to me,
yeah,
when you've got an auction that's got a lot of people, once you get to the pointy end, you ask people that aren't still in the bidding to actually turn their cameras and mute. Explain why.
Yeah, that's a very good tool that we found to build that anticipation up and draw the focus into and the pressure into the 2 people or 3 people who might be duking it out in the end. And just watching, I mean, sometimes it was just a pleasure to watch these cameras switching off, as you said to the buyers, for if you're, it's also a really good close and a really good test. Like some people were on the fence about bidding, they weren't sure, are you in or you're out. And if they wouldn't switch their camera off, when we said to them, look, switch your camera off if you're not going to participate, and please jump on mute, we knew that there was more in them. We knew that there was something more to take out of that bidding, and it would just build the intensity up. So sometimes we went from 10 people, I think one auction I had about 26 people on there, and we literally whittled it down to the 2 or 3 people who were in it right to the end. And the feedback we got about how intense that felt and how in the moment and in the zone everybody was awesome. And it really does help to sort the weed out from the chaff. It does help to sort, really to commit people to the process. So as you're going through it, just politely ask that, if you're no longer participating, then please switch off your camera, and then you'll notice that it goes a long way to build a bit of
but if you've
energy.
got an auction there, you've only got 2 people in there.
Well, I wouldn't obviously I wouldn't say that, and we choose our moments, but where you have the moment that you can do that, and the auction's rolling, and it's a good auction, you want to leave people, you want to get that, that bit, that emotional bit, energy and that emotional money into the mix. And so how do you do that when you're on a computer screen? It's hard. And that was one method that we introduced that I think worked really, really well for us. The feedback was amazing.
Now, Sam, when the property was sold, like I'm sure you were 1,000,000%, everyone else was out, and then you would, with your hand or a gavel or contract, you'd go sold.
Wooden spoon sometimes.
What's that?
A wooden spoon sometimes from the kitchen.
I like that. And then Sam, what you would do is you'd then say, like, what would you say? We'll ring you up in a second and we'll organize.
Yeah. So what we'll do? So obviously we'll build up to that crescendo. Make sure everybody's out. Make sure I suppose the cameras are down. It's clearly one person. We do the call, knock it down, and then ask everybody to exit, excluding the person who was holding the successful bid. And then we would stay on with that person and largely keep them on the Zoom and keep them connected. Because I did have one auction where we broke the Zoom call at the end, and then they came back and they didn't want to pay they just shit themselves about the whole process and where it ended up and all of that sort of thing. And so we had to kind of work really, I think if we had kept that eye contact and somebody talking to them the whole time, we wouldn't have had that release and that change. But I mean, that was a lesson learned there.
Now, want to ask you with Sydney, Sam, and I know that you didn't go through this, but with Sydney, this is what I was going to ask you. Did you ever have any of your agents actually bidding for the buyers?
We did a couple of times. Not too many, maybe 3 or 4 times we had that. We had that happening. But we had loads of advocates on there as a different.
Right, but like a buyer's agent.
Yeah, we had lots of buyer's agents on there. Yeah.
Okay, so Sam, can I ask you, with Sydney, you are allowed to be at a buyer's house. Like one agent is allowed to be at a buyer's house.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say to yourself, that's knowing what you know, is that a good idea to go over send one of your sales team there, or do you think they're fine just to be there on their own and you communicating by phone?
I would think that, I mean, it could be a bit intimidating and a bit full on to have the agent sitting at the front of your car like security detail waiting to come storm inside to help you. I would probably ease off that. I think it's but that's just a personal view. For me, I would probably just try to keep it as light, entertaining, energetic, normal. I think it'd be weird for an agent to turn up to a buyer's house waiting to coach them through an online thing. I mean, people are not stupid; they know how to use Zoom.
So Sam, and me myself, I've been thinking about it this morning. Like, if I've only got 3 people that are going to be bidding on a property, and I'm thinking to myself, nice and early, put in a vendor bid, have pre-auction buyer meetings with the buyers and say, listen, guys, we're going to let you know, we're going to start off at a level that there's a decent chance we're in the zone. We're not going to, so we're going to put in a vendor bid nice and early instead of starting low on a Zoom. What do you think?
I agree with you, but one of the things that we tried to do wherever possible, particularly if the numbers were light, is we tried to actually get an offer that put it on the market before we started the auction. So once the registrations came in, right, we would then go back. So if we had 3 registrations, we'd try to pick out our key buyer. Tom, you're the key buyer. This is what's going to happen on Saturday. But to put yourself in the best position, the vendors, obviously it's an interesting environment for everyone. If we can get an agreement on price, we can guarantee you the property's on the market, and only if there's a challenger will we take it to the Zoom. Right? Do you want to put yourself in that position? And that worked really well, very consistently.
So you sold a lot of properties prior to auction.
Well, we had the deal. We had the deal. It was kind of like on the market.
Right.
Buyer and vendor agreed on the price. If none of the other 2 buyers were going to challenge that, that particular price, then it was done, and that was a safe place for everyone to be. And if there was a challenger, we just continued on with a scheduled Zoom, right? And
all right, so option 1 is what you wouldn't actually do the Zoom.
Yeah, option 1 is what sometimes if you're in that environment where you've got 2 or 3 and you think it's precarious and you might not be sure, why not use the registration to flush out those people, then start the dialogue early and lock in a deal, and then use it as leverage for the others to participate.
Smart. And you would do that the 72 hours beforehand, because you said that's when you started registering. Guys and girls, that is a nugget, because this is not a time where people should go thinking, let's see what this lottery lucky dip's going to be. No. This is a time where you're going to be a deal maker, like even using language to the other buyers. At what price would you still want to be included in a negotiation? And if they mention a figure that they're 200 off the pace, you can just say, I'm letting you know, you're not going to be a player at this level, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that. Now, Sam, can I ask you one final thing? The main thing that, the biggest learnings that you had, the biggest learnings you've had having done 50 of these that you can share.
Yeah, it's the biggest learning probably was more a positive one than anything else, is that it showed us that we could take if somebody wants a house, they're going to buy it regardless of the platform, the location of the auction. We're now using Zooms. We're doing hybrid auctions now, sometimes where we've got some people on the Zoom and some people in our boardroom, because they haven't been able to attend. We've been able to increase the rate of deal making because of the introduction of a Zoom auction. Now, I think that's a wonderful lesson for us to have taken on board, where we can call an auction on a Tuesday night because something's on the market. 2 are in the room and 2 on the Zoom, as we say, and that's that's a very, very good lesson for us. As far as the technical issues, you need a very well-versed and well-scripted process for your team. Who's handling which buyer? Do the buyers have the contact details of everyone in case they run into tech issues? Coach them well, give them space, and they're probably the biggest lessons for that. For the use of the Zoom platform. But overall, I think it's been a really strong thing to introduce to our business, despite the way in which it came about.
Mate, absolute gold. Now, Sam, have you got any video post this call, any video of you doing a Zoom auction that we could watch?
Yeah, I'll chat to my team and see what we can dig up and send something over to you.
Mate, I really appreciate it. So I'll just even if it's a glimpse of something, something that's, you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure.
I'd love to put it out, particularly if it's a nice, good auction. Is there anything else that you reckon that you should say that I haven't asked you?
No, I think very, very thorough as always, mate. You've ticked all the boxes.
Now, Sam, can I ask,
Yeah.
hypothetically speaking, let's assume that all of a sudden the Delta virus hit 15 people in Victoria and Daniel Andrews turned around and said, hey, we're doing a snap lockdown for 2 weeks, hypothetically.
Yeah.
Mate, having gone through what you've gone through, how would you feel about it? Like right now in the middle of winter, would it devastate you? Would you feel, oh, fuck, it's okay, it's a bit of a break? How would you feel about it? I'm curious.
Well, the last one, I was quite grateful to have the break, to be honest, because there was so much pressure leading up to the lockdown. So running around like blue ass flies trying to get as many deals done as we possibly can to make up for lost time of this year, that we weren't really, we just, everyone, I think if you ask a lot of agents, a lot of people have in any industry, they've got a sense of fatigue about them this year. And so it was a welcome relief and break, but we still did the deals that had to be done in that time frame, and just didn't put any extra pressure on ourselves to make more of it. Like if there were 5 auctions to do this weekend, and we did those 5, and then we took the foot off the pedal to a degree to enjoy the rest and bounce back when everybody else has bounced back.
Okay. How's life in Melbourne at the moment? Is the buyer energy strong, medium, lower?
It's really strong.
It's strong.
It's really strong. Yeah.
If they list, everything just sells quickly.
Everything is just, hammering. We had, I had 8 auctions booked for Saturday. They all sold. Our clearance rates are maintaining up at around high 80s, early 90% clearance rates. There's 4 or 5 buyers for just about every house that's on the market. So the energy hasn't dissipated at all for us down here. So I think there's that gives you a sense of confidence and comfort when you're coming in and out of these lockdowns. Also, that that buyer pool and that energy is there, which has been nice. So good overall, very strong. Hopefully, it continues for a few more months.
What are stock levels like in your part of the world?
Well, we're setting up to have our strongest start to a financial year on record. So it seems that the stock momentum is still building. We're certainly not, like, if you look at the volume of real estate that we're selling, it's on par with previous years. So we can't say it's undersupplied from a stock perspective. There's just an oversupply of buyers. The buyers out there are just so many more people who want to transact and buy a house. But from a stock level perspective, it's actually, it's very healthy, and lots of really good volume coming through, particularly for this time of year.
And your personal business unit, did you have a good financial year?
Yes, we've had a best, which is I think not uncommon for a lot of agents in Australia this year, and a lot of teams have had their personal best, and we've certainly had ours by a long way this year. We're coming to a close. Just did a deal off market this morning, which should tip us over into a threshold that we haven't been in before. So it's very, very strong.
All righty, Sam Rigopoulos, you've just listened to the #1 real estate agent in Victoria. You've also listened to the #1 agent in Jellis Craig. You've also listened to the #1 Greek agent in Australia. We can keep going on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Right, mate. You're a good guy. I'll never forget it, man. You know, often when people, you know, I catch up with people, you know, everyone's got a different approach to things, but I clearly remember it would have been around 2015, 16. You came into Alexandria one day in Sydney at News Corp's office, at Vogue's office. It was not at the Surrey Hills office. And I remember, you know, you unlike what I'm often used to, is people always just say, you know, what can I get out of this interaction? And I clearly remember the first 10 or so minutes. That's what grabbed me about you. The first 10 or so minutes, you came across in a very, hey, mate, I want to give you this, and here's the reason I want to give it to you. It was something small but very symbolic, and you didn't want to, you know, it was more about. It wasn't like, what can I get out of this very, very quickly in the hour or two together we were there. And I always remember that. And I always think, Sam, in life, I mean, I know it's very simplistic to say this, but I think that you do have givers and takers. You meet buyers and sellers that are givers and takers. You meet you all the time. You meet staff that are givers and takers. Some people constantly just want to see, what can I get out of this, right? What can I get out of it? Yep. And, you know, I was explaining to, and I'll finish on this point. I was explaining to my daughter. My daughter goes to me, Daddy, why do you give away all this free training? Why don't you just tell people you can't get it? It's here. You got to pay for it. And I explained to her, and I think she got it. I said, sweetie, this is the youngest daughter. I said, sweetie, I want you to understand, in life, there's a game, right? And there's a game. And what happens is, it's like at school where there's a soccer game and they say, pick him. I want him in his team. So in life, there's a game. And what happens is, if you want to get invited to that game, you've got to be seen as someone that adds value to the game, someone that gives, not someone that's going to take out of the game. Someone's going to enrich the game. And if you actually are someone that gives, you get picked to go to the game. You're included. And what happens is, in this game, you meet a lot of people. And then what happens is, a person says, hey, I play this other game on other days over here. Man, come and play this game. But in this game, you actually get paid, right? We pay you, right? So the point is, it actually works. By giving away free content, you get invited to a lot more games. That's it.
That's right. Funny that.
All righty. And that's what you've done. You've invited you. By the way, that's what he's done right here. He's come and he's given to this game. And I got to tell you, because Phil Harris has told me, if you ever want to get a speaker to come in and give you nuts and bolts real estate, but at the same time, real life, authentic, motivating, man, get this guy in. Get this guy to come and speak to your team.
Thanks, Tommy.
All righty. Signing off. Thank you so much.
Yep. No worries. See you, mate. Okay, bye, guys.